Thanks for tuning in today. We're coming at you from Golva, North Dakota in the southwestern part of the state. We're going to talk about the history and what made this area great. We're also going to talk about a train line that came through the area and some of the century-old ranches from the area and why it's so important to the community. We'll also talk about St. Mary's Church, and of course we always end with why you need to come visit a small town in North Dakota. We're coming at you from the Golva bar. You can have a steak, you can have a burger, or just a cup of coffee. Watch now. Welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We are coming at you with the My Hometown series in Golva, North Dakota. It is in the very western part of North Dakota.
Southwest.
Southwest, almost central, right along just a few miles south of I-94. And with me today, I have Don Nisler. Don, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to Golva.
Absolutely. This is just a really vibrant community. But when I asked you to be a guest, you have quite just your background a little bit. You ranched a little bit. You're a former banker, and now you help out as a janitor. And I think the only reason I mention that is because it speaks to the community here. Everyone just pitches in when something needs to be done.
Yeah, it was always a job opening for someone that comes to Golva. When I retired from the bank, I had 5 jobs after I retired. Just I hauled mail for a couple of times as a substitute mailman. I did janitor work at the school and took care of cattle at home. And I had more jobs when I retired than before I retired.
Wow. Well, let's kind of dive into the history of Golva. Tell us how it got its name.
Golva started from the Golden Valley County. GOL from Golden Valley, from Golden, and VA from Valley. So that's how it got its name,
right?
Golden Valley.
And that was right around 1914, I understand.
Mm-hmm, yes. It originally was Berkey, North Dakota, which was a town 2 miles south and 2 miles east of Golva, where all the homesteaders were settled. And it was quite a vibrant town. They had, a Catholic church and a grocery store and a school, and I think they had a cheese factory there for a while, but it only lasted like, 10, 12 years, something like that. Because when the railroad went through, it went through this area here, so that then it was 4 miles from the track to Berkey, so then people started moving from Berkey to Golva, and that's how Golva got started.
Yeah, and it seems like back in those days, the railroad would make or break a community.
Absolutely, yeah, because before that, the farmers had to haul their grain clear to the beach, and some of them are 10, 12 miles east of Golva, so that was quite a trip to haul grain to clear the beach. So when the railroad comes through, they could haul grain to Golva, and because at one time there was 3 grain elevators in town here. Wow. And so that made a good, and then like I said before, when the railroad come through, they would pick up cream cans and take cream to Mandan, or I think there was another one in Glendive too, but most of them went to Mandan. So it was nice for the farmers to rely on the railroad.
Right. And then I did a little bit of research. They talk about the Lone Tree Township. So tell us about the Lone Tree.
I just know there was a tree. It's just on the edge of town out here and down in the creek, and sat there by himself. And for some reason, they thought that's a good way to call the township Lone Tree Township.
Sure.
So it's been Lone Tree Township ever since then. And I think the tree is long gone since then.
Right. I did a little research, and this is on Wikipedia, that the tree died around 1980, but when the settlers came over, there was only 1 tree in the area. And so they called it Lone Tree. And then when the settlers came in with the Homestead Act, they encouraged people to plant trees because there was just 1 tree in the area. Wow, that's just amazing, because when you think about everyone coming in, what were they going to use for heating their homes, etc.?
Yeah. You see pictures of the early settlers, there wasn't a tree in sight.
Right.
Until, because most of the settlers come here from Minnesota, and in Minnesota, there's trees all over, so they come out here and, hey, we got to have some trees for shelter and beauty. and
Sure.
what have you.
Sure.
So lots of trees were planted in farmsteads. Yeah.
Right. And so how did they heat their homes back then? I understand that there's some coal veins around here as well.
But there's coal veins. In fact, a man and his son died in a coal mine down on the Missouri River, Little Missouri River, which is below Bullion Butte in that area. And they would go in them mines and mine coal and load it up and bring it. They heated with coal mostly and cooked with coal too.
Sure, sure. So what are some early stories that you like to share about Golva? Any?
Oh my gosh, sakes.
The ones that are good for TV.
Oh, that's really bad now. I don't know. I'll tell the story. Elaine's husband, Harry Zachman, and I were very good friends. And in the late 70s, we decided we got to have the 4th of July celebration. In order to have a good 4th of July celebration, you have to have a parade. I told my dad about it. You guys are crazy. You can't have a parade in Golva. Well, we just proceeded to have a parade, and we had a parade for many years. Many, many entries. Had a wonderful parade. And so that carried on for quite a while. That was one story I could tell about.
But it seems like there's such a huge community here, and it goes back, for a century, for that matter, that people helped out, and we're going to talk later in the show about moving the church from Berkey to here. But it's just everybody around here always pitched in.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If anybody needs help, there's usually 3 or 4 people to help them. Or if you want a job, like I said, you can't go jobless here very long. They'll put you to work someplace.
Right. So then talking about some of the early settlers, I want to say the last settler was Emma Geary, and she died in 1978. And she had quite a story too. I guess she had, and this was a little research that I had done, that in 58, she fell and broke her hip. And then the doctors told her that she would be bedridden for the rest of her life. And then, pardon my French, but she said, "The hell I will." And she walked with one crutch until 1978. Yeah. And she did move to Beach to go ahead and be closer to relatives and more medical care. But she was on her homestead until 1958, and then she passed away in 1978.
Yeah, that's how determined the people were in those days. They were born strong and determined people, and they lived their life that way. You help me and I'll help you, and we'll make it through this whole thing. And depression and all in the 30s, Great Depression went through in the 30s, and a lot of farmers went broke. There was a bank in town here that went broke, but they all went through it and made it through there.
Sure. Yeah, and it's just so interesting how people just absolutely come together. And I want to say, when I was looking at the 2020 census, they say the population of Golva is about 84, but you seem to disagree with that a little bit?
I think I have to disagree on that, yeah. Like I said, I think they must have counted every dog and cat in town in order to come up with that figure.
Sure. So what was the population in its heyday? Do we even know?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm going to say 150, probably 200 in that area someplace.
Sure.
There was a hotel in town, and livery stables, and a lot of 2 bars, 2 grocery stores.
Sure. Sure. Just a very vibrant community.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, Don, we're going to have to say goodbye for now because we have simply run out of time. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the history of Golva right here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. And we'll be right back with more on Ladies of Another View on Back Coming At You from Golva.
My Hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Wine Rice Cattle and Grain, Dorset Diesel, Prairie Lumber Company of Beach and Golva.
The agency in Beach would like to thank you for trusting their dedicated team of agents with your personal, commercial, farm, and ranch insurance needs. The Agency Insurance, coverage for what matters most.
With over 40 years of combined experience in the industry, DAC Insurance can be trusted to provide you with the ideal insurance policies. Locally owned and operated in Beach, North Dakota, DAC Insurance agents are licensed in North and South Dakota and Montana. Home, farm, crop, and everything in between. You can rely on the DAC Insurance team to meet your coverage demands.
Home on the Range offers a nurturing place for teens who may have just come from an unsafe or traumatic environment. Here, they receive therapy and education services centered around animals, and the surrounding nature provides opportunities for work, fun, and healing. Life skills learned at Home on the Range are carried with residents when they return to the community with new talents and a greater appreciation for themselves and others.
Welcome to Beach, North Dakota, a friendly community with an abundance of outdoor recreation to be enjoyed by the whole family. A close-knit community that opens their arms in a warm embrace to visitors and new residents. A great place to raise a family. A healthy, safe, and welcoming environment. A place where neighbors truly value one another. Beach tips its hat to tradition, yet values the visionary. Beach life is the best life. Visit Beach online at beachnd.com.
Farmers Union Oil of Beach has everything to keep you going. Our full-service Napa has the parts and tools to fix what's slowing you down. Our service center offers quick, convenient oil and tire changes. And with our fleet of trucks, we can bring fuel wherever you need. Our warehouse is stocked with bulk oil, propane, and animal feeds. Our Cenex C-Store has what you need to fill up your vehicle and yourself. Farmers Union Oil of Beach, reliably serving Beach and the surrounding communities since 1930.
Farmers and ranchers, thank you from the team at Agra Insurance in Beach for trusting us with your crop, hail, livestock, and rangeland coverage needs. Agra Insurance Inc., your crop and hail insurance specialists.
My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Buzzy's Cafe, X's Food Center, First State Bank of Beach, Golva, and Medora.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We are in Golva, North Dakota, and I now have the pleasure of visiting with Alan Wosepka. Alan, welcome to the show.
Hello.
You know, I'm excited to do this area because it is so rich in history. Just over the last 150 years, it's seen its highs and lows, etc. But the one thing that's remained constant is the ranching industry. Why don't you kind of dive into some of the old ranches from way back when?
Well, I'm not as old as I should be. I'm just pretty much familiar with the ranches around the area since maybe 1964, 65, and traded brandings with a lot of them local people.
And they still do it the old-fashioned way, a lot of the brandings, don't they?
Quite a lot, but not near so much as, I guess when I come to the ranch that I'm on now and help during the summers, we rode to a lot of brandings. Nobody had a horse trailer, and it went for a big area, I guess I'd always started liking ranching then, and wanted to ranch for a long time. And
So some of these ranches are over 100 years old, I understand, and some of them were actually stagecoach stops from Medora to Deadwood.
yeah, that's a little bit before my time.
Of course.
But I guess what I could say is what I picked up from this ranching in these areas. I've heard a lot of talk about the ranches and try to remember it, and then it wouldn't be any different than you could pick up in a history book to read about them. I know as a young fella, I did like a lot of them ranchers, prominent ranchers, and they're pretty strict in their ways. respected a lot of them people. At that time there, dang near every branding you went to was all Hereford cattle, and that's where I decided that I'd really wanted to have them Hereford cattle, and well, I ranched with them Hereford cattle all my life, and all I can say is they kept me broke enough to where I couldn't afford to leave.
Isn't that the truth?
But I did pay for them a ranch with them cattle, and I really respect them cattle as the old style cattle.
Right,
You know?
right. I have a good friend down in Mulbridge by the name of Casey Perman, and he is huge into the Hereford cattle as well.
Yeah.
And so he'll be excited to know that, you know, that breed of cattle, that's what made this area.
Yes.
It really did.
We had, as with the rest of the ranches, government permits to go with each one. And when we rode to them brandings, and you gather Hereford cattle all the time, there's very few of them that wasn't, but that's fine, you know. Very few of them that wasn't Hereford cattle, and at that time there, you couldn't, the rules of the Grazing Association, you couldn't turn out any other colored bull than a Hereford bull. We wanted to turn out a black bull a time or so, and we just respected the rest of the permittees around us, and we kept them that way.
Sure. So I had promised that I wouldn't ask any I gotcha questions, but this one here comes to mind. Okay, there's an old John Wayne movie, and there was a huge blizzard, and the next spring they were so worried about this Hereford bull. Do you remember its name?
No, I don't.
The Vindicator.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that movie? Oh, I'm having memories just pop up because that is such a strong brand. And even speaking of John Wayne, you know, they had that other movie, John Wayne and the Cowboys, that kind of came through this area too, that ended up in Belle Fourche.
Yeah. They don't make movies like them anymore, I don't think.
No, they sure don't. We need to get more Westerns. Now they have Yellowstone, but Yellowstone, that's not quite how ranching is.
Yeah.
I remember in one scene where a newborn calf got up and ran away. It looked to weigh about 200 pounds. So
I've never watched that Yellowstone story. I've
Yeah.
never seen it.
it's not as the ranching that you know, that's for sure. So then what are some other great memories of the ranching industry in the area?
Well, I don't know if it's, I still respect the common people that came into these communities. You're doing something on the Golva area here, and you'll do more around. And I just have a lot of respect for the people that came here, lived on nothing, had no running water and no electricity, and they've been there forever. And them people went through a lot of hell, you know, and they're still there, or people from them families is still there, and they deserve more respect than what they get, really, you know. You just can't come into and name a building over somebody that has no hooks to the community, you know, and these old people, old settlers and stuff that was way before me, maintained them farms, got them bigger, paid their taxes. They just deserve a little more respect than what they get.
I think you're absolutely 100% spot on.
Yeah.
I really do. It's America was built on the backs of these hardworking individuals, these settlers that came in and made it, you know, what it is today.
Yeah.
And we don't like to get political on these shows, but sometimes the government, it seems like everyone's looking for a handout now, and that's not the way it was back in the day. Everyone just did their work, got their work done, and if they couldn't afford something, the neighbors pitched in, the neighbors helped out, but they weren't running to the government for a handout.
Well, you know, and I won't say any name, but we had a lady that was a neighbor to us there for quite a few years. She didn't have many cattle. If you needed help, she'd help you. Her fences were always fixed. Her cattle were always in where they belonged. She didn't get big. big ranch or nothing. But as today, she's very well respected person that was there. You know?
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't really a strife for a lot of them to get bigger and bigger. It just do your part in the community, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, that's sure the truth. So I know we talked a little bit in the last segment about the railroads in the area. Were there ever any cattle cars on the railroad back when the Golva Dinky was running?
Well, I know when my dad started that ranch, they trailed them cattle to Marmouth, and not many times did they, but when he started out, they trailed the cattle to Marmouth. It was the rail.
Sure. And how far is Marmouth from here?
Golly, I don't know. It's
30, 40 miles?
Oh yeah,
More than that?
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, that was the rail where a lot of steers, you know.
Right. All right. Well, Alan, we have simply run out of time, but
good.
I appreciate you just giving us a little bit of tidbits. And you're right. People can find this in history books. Just go and check out some of the books. There's actually a Golden Valley Library in Beach, North Dakota. So when you come out to Golva, stop in Beach, take a look at the library, check out the history, and see what all these small towns are up to. Thanks again.
Very good, thank you.
All right, and we'll be right back with more after this on Ladies of Another View on Deck, coming at you from Golva, North Dakota.
My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Beach Pharmacy, Green Circles Farm and Feed Yard, the City of Golva and Golva Park Board.
Farmers and ranchers, thank you from the team at Agra Insurance in Beach for trusting us with your crop, hail, livestock, and rangeland coverage needs. Agra Insurance, Inc., your crop and hail insurance specialists.
With over 40 years of combined experience in the industry, DAC Insurance can be trusted to provide you with the ideal insurance policies. Locally owned and operated in Beach, North Dakota, DAC Insurance agents are licensed in North and South Dakota and Montana. Home, farm, crop, and everything in between. You can rely on the DAC Insurance team to meet your coverage demands. Farmers Union Oil of Beach has everything to keep you going. Our full-service Napa has the parts and tools to fix what's slowing you down. Our service center offers quick, convenient oil and tire changes. And with our fleet of trucks, we can bring fuel wherever you need. Our warehouse is stocked with bulk oil, propane, and animal feeds. Our Cenex C-Store has what you need to fill up your vehicle and yourself. Farmers Union Oil of Beach, reliably serving Beach and the surrounding communities since 1930.
The agency in Beach would like to thank you for trusting their dedicated team of agents with your personal, commercial, farm, and ranch insurance needs. The Agency Insurance, coverage for what matters most.
Are you looking for an exciting opportunity to gain work experience while having your college tuition paid? Our new virtual John Deere Ag Tech program provides specialized, hands-on education. After learning the tools of the trade from an agricultural industry leader, students in the program will work full-time at Gooseneck Implement, receive full-time benefits while taking online classes during evenings and weekends. You can even have your college tuition paid back after 4 years.
Welcome to Beach, North Dakota, a friendly community with an abundance of outdoor recreation to be enjoyed by the whole family. A close-knit community that opens their arms in a warm embrace to visitors and new residents. A great place to raise a family. A healthy, safe, and welcoming environment. A place where neighbors truly value one another. Beach tips its hat to tradition, yet values the visionary. Beach life is the best life. Visit Beach online at beachnd.com. My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Golva Bar and Steakhouse, Buckboard Inn, Golden Valley News.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We are visiting with Joe Kreidinger. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You know, Joe is going to talk a little bit about the Golva Dinky. I know the railroad was very important to this area, and when I came down here, everyone asked me, well, have you heard of the Golva Dinky? And it's like, no, I haven't. So why don't you tell us what the Golva Dinky is or was?
Okay, it was a train that came through from Beach through Golva into Carlisle and ended in Ollie, which had a turnabout and then came back. They closed a branch between Carlisle and Ollie probably 20 years before they did one, and then eventually closed Carlisle, and it was just Golva. When I worked at the elevator for quite a few years. When I first started there, they'd bring down probably like 15, 20 cars at a time. Probably leave like 10 here and 10 in Carlisle. And then come back. It came twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. And they'd leave the cars off on Monday. Friday when they come back, they'd leave new cars and take the old ones out.
Oh, okay.
And in later years, when I was trying to think about when they quit running down here, but it got after Carlisle closed was this Golva, and they never have enough cars at what we'd order, and so it finally got down there. We're only bringing maybe 3 or 4 cars, and they only came once a week, and sometimes it'd be every 2 weeks. You just didn't know, but you had to have the car loaded in so many hours, or they'd charge you for late deal. Well, it'd sit there 2 weeks after you had loaded, but anyhow, that's why it got to be called the Golva Dinky, because it just finally got so small that there wasn't, like I say, basically 2 cars every 2 weeks, about all we were getting.
Oh, and I suppose back then, the people were starting to haul grain with trucks?
Yeah, the trucks got bigger and bigger when they started getting semis and stuff like that. They didn't close it because we didn't have enough grain for it. They were trying to close branch lines. It's more a decision by the railroad that they weren't making a big enough profit to be running on here. And that track needed a lot of repair. The places between here and Beach, they had to slow down to 10, 15 miles an hour to make sure the cars didn't roll over or something.
Oh,
because it was soft and they just didn't put any work back into them.
Oh, that makes sense. And I know it was always a big fight in these small communities as to where the railroad would go.
Right.
And I want to say it was the Northern Pacific was the original rail line?
Yes. Mhm. Yeah, it was, I mean, when they came here, it was definitely needed, and it brought, well, mainly by the community survived and stuff. But after, like I say, they got bigger trucks and more transportation, not much was brought down here by the railroad anymore.
Sure.
You know, most everything came by truck, so that hurt the business coming this way too. And like I said, when I first remember the train was more, we just milked a few cows, and every week we had about 2 5-gallon cans of cream or 15-gallon cans. And that's mainly how us kids made our spending money while we were growing up. And that was kind of interesting because the railroad depot was just on the east edge of Main Street here in Golva. You couldn't go past it. It was a dead end. And the main roads went by the elevator then. And once they took the depot out, then Main Street went through and they closed the other street off, which was good because it was between grain silos. And we always worried about them coming through with the train because there was no arms, or lights. And as much traffic as it went through there, they were always worried about somebody getting hit by the train.
Right.
Because it was blind spot.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that can happen so easily, whether you're going across, back in the day, they still used the horse and buggies or the I guess it would be a wagon.
Right.
They still use that, and you really got to get to getting if you're going to get across.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I didn't know that's how they got the Dinky name, but I just want to show our viewers, this is called the Jubilee Journey of the Golva Dinky. And we're down here in Golva. We're actually at the Golva Bar, and it's almost like a little mini museum in itself down here. And Nancy, one of the owners, she gave this information to me with the Golva Dinky, and there's all kinds of cute little stories in here that this was written September 3rd, 1965. Now, is that when the rail line ended? Do you know?
No, it was running, I'd say probably, I don't know if it got into the 2000s or not, because I started working at the elevator, I think, in 1982. No, is it really that about 70? I would say the
Maybe.
train probably 1980s, 1990s probably was the last train.
Sure.
And they brought it was cute, they brought a train down with just, what do you want to call it?
Replica?
Well, it had just had one car on it. It was a passenger car. And so they gave everybody a free ride from Beach to Carlisle and back. And that was, it was kind of a fun trip and stuff, but it showed you how many hours it took because of what the condition the track was in. It was a slow ride, so, but it would have been a lot of fun.
So how far is Carlisle from Golva?
Probably about 9-10 miles. It's about 5 miles south and about 4 miles west.
Okay. And so basically the whole track line is about 27, 30 miles long?
Yeah, probably 30 by the time you get to Ollie. It would have been,
Right.
yeah.
And then when you think about the technology with the roundabouts, the turnabout, they had some really good stuff going on here.
Yeah.
They really did. In this little pamphlet too, they mention a lot of little stories how people used to jump the train to get from one place to the other just for fun.
Just talking about that, my boss was telling me a story when him and his friends, Donnie Nissler's brother, actually when they were in 3rd or 4th grade, they came down and saw the train was just barely moving. And so they jumped on it in the back car and they got rode out to Carlisle and back. Well, that's probably like a 3 or 4 hour trip at least. And little kids in 4th grade don't realize their parents are going to be missing them.
Right.
And the engineer noticed him on the train before he got out there because anyhow, when they got out there and turned around, he invited him up into the engine and let him,
Locomotive?
yeah. And so he said he got such a kick out of it until they got back home and their parents caught him.
Then he got another kick, I bet.
He said then they got to walk home, which is about 3 or 4 miles from here. He said if you had enough time to go ride the train, you had enough time to go walk home. So.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, and it's, I know that the depot has been moved. Does anybody know where the original depot is located?
No, it's funny because I was here. I don't remember leaving or anything. A lot of the buildings here in town did go to Baker. Sousa bought a lot of the houses or some of the old businesses and moved them down there, but I don't believe that was one of them. But I don't remember where that would have gone or if it got torn down.
Right, it's worth some research for someone
Yeah.
to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'd like to find out too what happened to it because I don't think it was that best shape. So I'm kind of guessing I'd be more surprised that it didn't get torn down than moved down. But I think you'd be more apt to remember getting torn down. So
Sure.
and then
Well, it's a
Yeah,
little
that-
mystery that we need to find out.
I think we're going to.
All right, so I just want to thank you for joining us today and telling our viewers a little bit about the Golva Dinky train line that went from Beach down to Carlisle.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and we'll be back with more right here on Ladies of Another View on Deck, coming at you from Golva, North Dakota.
My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Bruce Ross Realtor, Weishar Auction Service, the City of Golva and Golva Park Board.
Farmers Union Oil of Beach has everything to keep you going. Our full-service Napa has the parts and tools to fix what's slowing you down. Our service center offers quick, convenient oil and tire changes. And with our fleet of trucks, we can bring fuel wherever you need. Our warehouse is stocked with bulk oil, propane, and animal feeds. Our Cenex C-Store has what you need to fill up your vehicle and yourself. Farmers Union Oil of Beach, reliably serving Beach and the surrounding communities since 1930.
The agency in Beach would like to thank you for trusting their dedicated team of agents with your personal, commercial, farm, and ranch insurance needs. The agency insurance, coverage for what matters most.
Welcome to Beach, North Dakota, a friendly community with an abundance of outdoor recreation to be enjoyed by the whole family. A close-knit community that opens their arms in a warm embrace to visitors and new residents. A great place to raise a family. A healthy, safe, and welcoming environment. A place where neighbors truly value one another. Beach tips its hat to tradition, yet values the visionary. Beach life is the best life. Visit Beach online at beachnd.com.
At Farm Credit Services of Mandan, we understand the needs of both young and seasoned farmers. We also know those needs can change. That's why our Generate operating loans are designed with maximum flexibility in mind. With competitive rates, multi-year credit lines, and working capital structured to fit your needs, we're ready to grow with you, no matter how challenging the season. Generate new opportunities with us at Farm Credit Services of Mandan.
Home on the Range offers a nurturing place for teens who may have just come from an unsafe or traumatic environment. Here, they receive therapy and education services centered around animals, and the surrounding nature provides opportunities for work, fun, and healing. Life skills learned at Home on the Range are carried with residents when they return to the community with new talents and a greater appreciation for themselves and others.
Farmers and ranchers, thank you from the team at Agra Insurance in Beach for trusting us with your crop, hail, livestock, and rangeland coverage needs. Agra Insurance Inc., your crop and hail insurance specialists.
My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Wine Rice Cattle and Grain, Dorset Diesel, Prairie Lumber Company of Beach and Golva.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. I am in Golva, North Dakota, and have the pleasure of visiting with Elaine Zachman. Elaine, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I understand that you have a long history in the town of Golva, that there was a Catholic church that was from Berkey and it moved here and then you rebuilt. So why don't we just start from the very beginning? Tell us the history of St. Mary's Church.
Well, like you said, it started in Berkey before the railroad was instigated to come through Berkey, but that didn't happen. So then when the railroad went through here and the people left, then they moved the church as well. And that was done under the guidance of my grandfather, who took down the walls. And in the middle of winter, they laid the walls on snow sleds and brought it into town and built it.
Wow, and so I'm just going to hold this up. A couple books have been written, and the church was an old wooden church, and they actually split it into the four walls and brought it over here on sleds. Now that takes determination.
Well, it was much smaller, and I think in the 40s they did a remodeling, and this probably was all part of the remodeling, but it was smaller at the time.
Oh, okay, sure. Sure, that makes sense. And so we talked earlier in the show about how the railroad really made or broke these towns along the way.
Yes.
And so Berkey was actually a pretty thriving community before the railroad.
Oh yes, very much so. And at the time that the church moved, then the graves were moved as well.
Oh.
And my grandfather tells about digging up the people and bringing them up here to St. Mary's in the cemetery in Golva.
Wow.
There are still a few graves out there yet, and it is fenced off.
Sure.
It's sacred ground.
Right, right. I understand too, because just doing some old grave history, a lot of times back then, a lot of the headstones were wooden, and the only way to control the grass, they would burn the graveyards a couple times a year, and then with that, there went the tombstones.
Yeah.
They weren't stone, they were wood.
Crosses.
Wood crosses, right. And so sometimes it's really difficult to identify some of those graves, but God bless your father for what he did back in the day. Grandfather, wow. And so when was your grandfather here, if I may ask?
He came out, the Catholic Church had a program where they were bringing people out to Western North Dakota. And so he came out and he was here like 3 years. He'd come out and put the crop in and do the homesteading, build a house, whatever it took. And then he'd go back and spend the winter with my grandmother back in Minnesota.
Oh.
And then eventually, after 3 years, she came out. And he met her she had 3 children and she was pregnant with the 4th at the time.
Wow.
And met her in Beach and brought her out. And halfway between here and there, they stopped for water at farmer's yard. And the lady of the house came out and she looked at her and she says, "Woman, what are you doing here?" And Grandma cried for 3 days.
Oh.
There wasn't a tree. There wasn't, other than her relatives. She had sister and a brother who were out here as well, homesteading,
Wow.
but very lonely.
Yeah, and the determination of those people back then.
I don't know we'd be able to do that anymore.
No, no, and probably a one-room, probably a sod house, some of them anyway. I know some did live in the hills north of Beach. I've heard some of those stories.
Yeah.
And it was destitute out here. And like you said, and we talked about it earlier, there was just one lone tree in this whole area.
Yeah.
And so for those early settlers, it's amazing.
Very much so.
You know, and that's what even to this day they talk about cabin crazy or stir crazy, and it is because or cabin fever, I guess is what they call it. It's like these mothers that had all these these young kids in a one-room cabin, and they just kind of go crazy. I mean, we
Why
go
wouldn't
crazy, right?
Yeah, they had a stamina we'll never understand.
Right, right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the church. So it was moved here in the early days. It was a wooden church, but then I understand that later you guys actually built a brick church.
We did. That was in the 60s. And I think the first Mass in this new church was in August, the Feast of the Assumption. It is St. Mary's of the Assumption. So that's the day we had the first Mass in that church.
Lovely. And I understand from just visiting with other people in the area, they talked about that everything was basically volunteers that put that brick church together. And it was only one person that wasn't from this area, but everyone else was from the area, and they made that church brick by brick.
They did. Yeah, I'm sure all our fathers were involved in that, or our husbands. It was in the 60s, so.
Sure. I know in our area there's a Prairie Rock Church in Huff, North Dakota, and there's an exact church in Center, North Dakota, but they were made of prairie rock. And so, but you guys had the big fancy bricks.
Step up. There's also a step up at the kind of a, for seeing what would happen, it's on one level.
Oh,
Ground level, everything.
right. And no basement?
No basement.
No basement,
So in the 60s, that was a new item.
right?
Yeah.
They kind of call it a ranch-style church then, I suppose.
Well,
Like-
nowadays, at my age, you look to see how to get into the church, because there's steps. It's much more difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
So they had the foresight to know that, you know, with an aging population, it's good to have everything on one level. So that's really helpful.
It was very helpful.
Right. And I understand you were the choir director there for a while?
I was the choir and director in Golva, and then while we were in business in Beach, they didn't have music on Saturday night. So I got a hold of Ron and my son Vern, and they also brought another gentleman in, Brian, and we did the music on Saturday nights for a long time. And then Ron left and went to Bismarck or someplace, and he came home and he says, "Mom, we got to open this up. We're going to have a men's choir." So then that's when we joined the two churches to do a men's choir. And they've done very well for 20 years. They're still doing well. In fact, as we cut a record about 3 years ago.
You cut a record from Golva, North Dakota, Golva and Beach.
Yeah, we did.
And how do we find that?
I would go to the parish office in Beach. They keep some on hand.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we're going to have to get one of those and share it right here. So is there anything else you want to add about the church? I mean, there were some classrooms in there too. Was there a Catholic school?
No, it was just CCD, Christian education.
Yeah.
And it was Wednesday afternoon, then sometimes it was Sunday before Mass. So I had left this parish. I moved to Beach when my husband was dying. And so although this is my parish and I will be buried here with him, I really don't know that much about the parish. It's much smaller than it was
Sure.
way back when.
Well, and it brings in people from all over the area though.
Well, we had a residential priest. Right now we're a mission out of Beach.
Okay.
So it's nothing new. I mean, we've done it for a number of years, but
Sure. Well, it seems years ago everyone had 8, 10, 12 kids, especially Catholic families. And now people are having 2, 3, 4 is a big family.
yeah.
Right, and so there's not as many, but talking about, and we only have about a minute left, talking about CCD, years ago, even when I was growing up, they would let us out of school early to attend CCD, and now they're taking the 10 Commandments out of schools, so.
Unfortunate.
It is, it truly is.
Travesty.
It is. All right, Elaine, I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing the history of the church here in Golva, St. Mary's Church, and if anyone wants to find these books, where can they find them?
I would go back to the parish office in Beach.
Okay.
They were there for a number of years. We did this in 6, and so there was a number left over. Now they're just giving them away, just anybody who would want.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we're going to have to say goodbye for now, but I thank you for joining us. And when we come back, we're going to talk to one of the city leaders about what's going on and why you need to come to Golva today. We'll be right back after this with more on Ladies of Another View on Beck, coming at you from Golva, North Dakota.
My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Buzzy's Cafe, X's Food Center, First State Bank of Beach, Golva, and Medora.
The agency in Beach would like to thank you for trusting their dedicated team of agents with your personal, commercial, farm, and ranch insurance needs. The agency insurance, coverage for what matters most.
Home on the Range offers a nurturing place for teens who may have just come from an unsafe or traumatic environment. Here, they receive therapy and education services centered around animals, and the surrounding nature provides opportunities for work, fun, and healing. Life skills learned at Home on the Range are carried with residents when they return to the community with new talents and a greater appreciation for themselves and others.
With over 40 years of combined experience in the industry, DAC Insurance can be trusted to provide you with the ideal insurance policies. Locally owned and operated in Beach, North Dakota, DAC Insurance agents are licensed in North and South Dakota and Montana. Home, farm, crop, and everything in between. You can rely on the DAC Insurance team to meet your coverage demands.
Your tractor, Kate?
Yep,
What's it do?
everything.
Bale?
Can do.
Mow?
Can do.
Pull?
Can do.
Plow, harrow, dig, haul, and scoop?
Can do.
How about...
Can do.
What about...
Can do.
XL Homes has been providing custom manufactured and modular homes to the Dakotas and Montana for over 20 years. We offer land home packages and an easy solution to remote areas, lakes, and farmsteads. Our team will work closely with you to ensure your home is tailored to your specific needs. We do it all and will be here from initial design to delivery and final setup. Come to XL Homes for your next home. Farmers and ranchers, thank you from the team at Agra Insurance in Beach for trusting us with your crop, hail, livestock, and rangeland coverage needs. Agra Insurance Inc., your crop and hail insurance specialists.
My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Beach Pharmacy, Green Circles Farm and Feed Yard, the City of Golva and Golva Park Board.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We are coming at you from Golva, North Dakota. And with me now is Mariah Zachman. She is a city council member. Mariah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I'm so excited. You know, when I first came out here to do a little research, I stopped over here at the Golva Bar. It's a steakhouse / bar. Excellent food, by the way. And when I left, I walk across the street, stop at the bank to see if they wanted to do a sponsorship. And she goes, oh, I've already heard you're in town. And it's like, I hadn't even been in town, but when you're in a small town, news travels fast.
Very fast, yes.
So I can't help but notice that the community is, although it's small in size, it is just a huge community that just jumps in together. You have a church, you have a full main street. Just tell us all the highlights of Golva.
Oh, you bet. Yes, I think one of the main best parts about Golva is definitely the people, and everyone plays a role, and a lot of people play multiple roles.
Yes.
You have people that are on the city council that are also on the Golva Fire Department, and people that serve on the school board are also on city council. So you definitely have all sorts of people filling in the roles, because the generosity of this community isn't just in financially helping people, but we serve with our time too. And so you have the Golva grocery store, who is open 7 days a week. And I don't know what we would do without the Golva grocery store here in town. And then you have the bank also on Main Street. And it's just so fun when you can have small town banking and have someone call in to make a transfer, and you just need their first name because you know their voice.
Right. You don't have to ask for the last four of your social.
No.
And so what's really interesting about the bank, and they did sponsor this show, by the way, and we are grateful for that,
yes,
is it's the Bank of Golva. I thought it was a branch of a bank in Beach, and it's not. No, this is the Bank of Golva, and the branch is actually in Beach.
Yep. Golva is definitely the main hub, and then there is a branch in Golva, in Beach and Medora.
Nice, nice. And so what other things do you have right here in your community? I understand there's a gas/service station. You get your tires changed.
Exactly. We have the gas station, and that's so great because you can just call up Gary and say, I need an oil change, and he'll come get your vehicle from your house and take care of it all in the same day. And then you have the Prairie Lumber Yard, and then you also have the bar here, which can host all sorts of events, and they are so good about doing different specials and Valentine's Day meals, and any holiday they'll do something fun. And then we also have the city community building and the campgrounds, and so I schedule appointments or reservations there for hunters. Love to come to this area because you're so close to the Montana border, and so if you want to hunt in Montana and North Dakota, Golva is a great little spot, and then you can come to the bar for a burger. So yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
And so how does a person get a hold of you as far as wanting to make a reservation?
You bet. You can just call my number. It's 701-527-0319.
All right. Did you hear that? You can go ahead and just call a personal cell phone number and get a reservation for a campsite.
Yep.
It's like that's small town living.
It is. And it's like honor roll system as far as payment goes too. So it's so fun, and people get such a kick out of that too.
I always thought this would be a kind of a fun town to flip. Is there any buildings available for sale?
Well, that I don't so much know if there is. There's definitely a lot of buildings and places here, but people that own these lots like to hang on to them for future coming back and retirement or whatever. So I don't necessarily know if there's any that are for sale.
Okay. Well, I did do another small town Beach, which is right up the road.
Yep.
And they mentioned that there's a lot of young families that are moving back. Are you kind of finding that the same thing here?
Oh yes, for sure. I know even in like my own class, there's quite a few of us that went away to college and then definitely came back. And the thing is you can move away to a big city, but there's something special about a small town.
Right. When you have the serviceman coming to pick up your car for an oil change, there's something to say for that.
There really is. And you can turn on the news and you can hear so many horrible things happening in the world, but then you're just so thankful for the small town that you live in, because there's still so much good in the world.
Amen.
And you can see a lot of that in this community.
Right. And you still have a K-8 school here, right?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
And the high school kids, where do they go?
They go up to Beach.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. And then, so why don't you tell me some of the things that I've heard from other guests and other people in the community is about your community per se. If someone is sick, if someone had an accident, if someone needs help harvesting, tell us what happens.
It's truly remarkable. I have lived here most of my life, and my dad is an auctioneer. And so he will do benefit auctions. I would say 2 or 3 times a year. And they can raise anywhere from $30,000 to $70,000, which just really, really speaks to the generosity of this community. And you can have a lemon meringue pie go for $500, and that's nothing to people that are from this area, but others that come into the event and see that would think, my goodness, that is wild. But the fire department is such a fantastic group of people too. And yes, if there's anyone that is in need, man, Golva's the place to come and feel the love and support of your community for sure.
Right, right. You know, I've just heard that just everybody pitches in, whether it's financially or just time and talent.
Absolutely. Yes. We had a Christmas community event last year, and it was at one of the town halls that we have here in town. And spearheading that, knowing it was in Golva, I didn't worry at all about needing volunteers, because everybody you ask says, yes, what can I do to help? And it just makes putting on something so much easier.
All right, so earlier in the show, we talked to Don Nisler, and we talked about the census. The 2020 census said that there's 84 people living in Golva, but he thought maybe they counted a few cats and dogs. All right, what's your opinion? Or how close do you think that is?
I would have said less than 75 probably. I don't know for sure.
Are they counting like college kids maybe? Because that could be.
Oh, they sure could be. And I honestly don't even know what like the parameters are too, because it's not just the people that live directly in Golva. There's so much support that we have from the surrounding community too.
Right. It is a big ranching community.
Yes.
Is it farming and ranching 50-50, or is it more ranching, more farming? What's going on out here?
That is a great question, and I'm literally the last person to ask that question. It's just because I don't do much of the farming, ranching life.
See, now, okay, so we just dispelled a myth. Everybody knows your business in a small town. It's not true. She has no idea.
No idea.
That's awesome. You know, there's always these jokes about small towns. It's like, well, you don't have to use your blinker because everybody knows where you're going anyway, right? And then say if a dog's running down the street, you know them by name.
Absolutely.
Right. So if just in your last minute or so, what would you like to share about your community?
Oh man, I just love the people here. And I think that it's just such a great, special group of people. There's, like I said, there's a lot that you can turn on the news and see the horrible chaos that's going on around us. But man, we're just so appreciative for the people that we have in this place. And it does just make you feel really thankful to be in a small community, not just in America, but in North Dakota.
Right. And I just want to add too that we're at the Golva Bar. It's right on Main Street, almost the only street, but it has excellent food. People come from all over the state for the burgers and the steaks and just the coffee. It's a cafe too. It's not just a bar. It's a restaurant, steakhouse, burger bar. And so you can pretty much get anything you need right here.
And you're probably going to know somebody who's here when you come.
Absolutely. I've made lots of friends since I've been here. So I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing about Golva. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and just participating in these small hometown series that we have here on Beck. We have to say goodbye for now, and we will see you from our next location next time right here on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
My Hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Golva Bar and Steakhouse, Buckboard Inn, Golden Valley News. Welcome to Beach, North Dakota, a friendly community with an abundance of outdoor recreation to be enjoyed by the whole family. A close-knit community that opens their arms in a warm embrace to visitors and new residents. A great place to raise a family. A healthy, safe, and welcoming environment. A place where neighbors truly value one another. Beach tips its hat to tradition, yet values the visionary. Beach life is the best life. Visit Beach online at beachnd.com.
With over 40 years of combined experience in the industry, DAC Insurance can be trusted to provide you with the ideal insurance policies. Locally owned and operated in Beach, North Dakota, DAC Insurance agents are licensed in North and South Dakota and Montana. Home, farm, crop, and everything in between. You can rely on the DAC Insurance team to meet your coverage demands. Farmers Union Oil of Beach has everything to keep you going. Our full-service Napa has the parts and tools to fix what's slowing you down. Our service center offers quick, convenient oil and tire changes. And with our fleet of trucks, we can bring fuel wherever you need it. Our warehouse is stocked with bulk oil, propane, and animal feeds. Our Cenex C-Store has what you need to fill up your vehicle and yourself. Farmers Union Oil of Beach, reliably serving Beach and the surrounding communities since 1930.
My hometown of Golva, brought to you in part by Bruce Ross Realtor, Weishar Auction Service, the City of Golva and Golva Park Board.